Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar brought to you in partnership with CultureIQ. My name is Cath Longfield and I'm Head of Marketing for the Business Culture Awards and Events. When we first launched these awards, it was never just about one-off recognition. It was about creating a community that shared organisational challenges and enabled people to learn from one another's work. So hence this webinar and the events that we're now running monthly. We're very grateful to our speakers for sharing their approaches, and in turn we commit to promoting these amazing organisations as much as we can. We know that culture is one of the top 5 reasons people choose to join an employer. It's also why they stay. We're already into year 4 of recognising the most outstanding efforts to build culture and align people with the strategy of our businesses. And you can see the celebration of this here. So joining us today is Craig Joseph from intY, one of this year's award winners with a really inspiring business transformation story. Hi Craig, and could you tell everyone a bit about yourself?
Hi Cath, good morning, good afternoon, depending where everyone's based. Yeah, I'm CEO of intY. I'm into my 5th year here, and we've certainly seen some big changes in our culture over that time, and I look forward to sharing it with everybody today.
Thanks Craig. And we're also joined by Roome from CultureIQ, a company who work with 1/3 of Fortune 500 organisations and who we're very proud to be working with as principal partner of the awards. Welcome Christian, and could you say a few words to introduce yourself?
Hi there, I'm Roome and I'm a senior consultant at CultureIQ, and it's my job basically to work with our clients to assess and measure and help drive change around the culture area. So, pleasure to be here.
Great, Christian, thank you. So over the next 30 minutes, Craig and Christian will share the conditions that need to be in place to drive successful culture transformation and ensure that we can deliver an outstanding customer and employee experience into the future. If you've got any comments or questions as we go along, this is to all the attendees, we'd love to hear them. Please type them into your Q&A and we'll cover them at the end of each presentation.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. And what I'm going to be talking about is how to build your culture to support digitization. To start off, obviously, we need to define digitization. If you asked 100 business leaders what digitization is, you'd get 100 different answers. So the first thing I want to do is sort of define what I'm going to be talking about today. So we can move on. Oops. For our purposes today, digitization or digital transformation is how your organization uses evolving technologies and the ecosystems emerging around them to transform products and services, channels and operations to achieve strategic objectives. And I'll be talking about what's the culture you need to build in order to deliver on that. So from our research and from talking to our clients, we're seeing digitization impacting all areas of the business model. There's the product, and making changes to the existing portfolio of products and services to enhance them, and also launching new products and services to go beyond what the core business portfolio is. Then there's digitization impact on the channels, improving channel coordination and performance, and transforming channels to match the customer behaviors, and really sort of evolving really strongly in that area. And then the final and often the most important thing is the impact for operations and workforce, how the job actually gets done, and how employees work on a day-to-day thing to impact on all corporate functions. Now, when we've discussed with business leaders and the research we've done with business leaders, the vast majority of the conversations that we have, the questions that we get asked initially, and that people seem to be asking about digitization, is around the technology itself. And that's obviously critically important, but what oftentimes doesn't get asked about is what are the changes we need to make in how we work, what our culture's like, in order to sort of most effectively deliver on that change. Because obviously the new technologies that you're bringing into play are very important, and if you have bad technology, that's going to have an impact on your business. But there's also the issue that if you don't build the culture to enable that new technology to have its maximum impact, it's likely that digital investment will fail. So we really want to develop the culture within an organization to ensure that the digitization projects that you're building have the best chance of succeeding. Now, what we do at CultureIQ is a core of what we do is sort of build employee surveys, and working within that, we've then worked up what are the different cultural elements that you need to build in order to deliver on certain strategies. What are the behaviors and attitudes within the organization that are going to allow you to perform to your best of the ability if that's your focus? So today I'm looking specifically at digitization, but obviously a survey can be built to measure culture impacting on whatever your thing is, whether you're customer focused or innovation focused or brand is your primary measure and so on. But today, digitization. So when we studied into the digitization area, we found that there were 6 shifts happening in the business landscape that the businesses needed to take into account and to think about. There's one, the increasing reliance on data and how you're running your business, both for the customers, but also for how employees are going to be working within that business. Consumers are wanting, now that they're sort of becoming more and more familiar with what digitization and digital product and services can deliver them, they're wanting more and more personal service. Companies also, as they're not sort of developing technologies just internally, they are looking to buy in from outside, and that needs to be integrated in, and they're also looking to collaborate more within the organization, so the cross-functional, cross-business unit collaboration is increasingly important. Products need to become increasingly more information rich in order to be valuable for the business, and so you need to be sort of really able to sort of take on those new technologies. And obviously, as increasing automation requires increasingly skilled workers in order to deliver on that automation, and that also the employees themselves must be willing to go along on that journey. And then more and more businesses, particularly large ones, are being challenged by small, highly agile, highly technologically developed organizations. And so the ability to manage that change is critically important. So given all of this, we've built up a series of capabilities to meet those challenges. So when we're looking at data reliance, I think it's very important that you want to have a culture that supports tools and technology adoption so that people are able to sort of make the best use of the information that's there. When you're thinking about the products becoming more information rich and your need to develop products and services that deliver in those areas, you need to have a culture that's oriented towards improvement. And if you are going to be introducing all of these new technologies, you absolutely have to have a tolerance for risk. If you can't fail, you won't innovate. And so this is a critically important, it's often one of the areas that cultures have the biggest time struggling with. There's also the desire, as I said, for consumers to have more and more personal information. So you need to have an organization that's outward looking, that understands the customer perspective and effectively manages customer insight. Obviously, when you're looking to the changes with increased automation you need to have highly skilled workforces. You also need a workforce that's willing to go along on the journey. So obviously you need to be assessing skills and competencies appropriately and valuing those in all of your measurements. You need to have a workforce that trusts the company on the journey and is willing to support the change. When you come to the sharing and working across different boundaries, internal and external, there's ability to share information and cross-functional connectedness. And then finally, when you're looking at the internal sort of everything accelerating, it's about being external market sensing. So you're willing to move forward and change and understand what's happening in the marketplace, and you've got to be open to new ideas. So developing assessments, measurements, and culture that's going to support these capabilities is critically important. And so that's what we recommend that people work on. And finally, like I said, we often do a lot of our work around the main employee survey, but where we find the biggest success coming is when people measure their culture through all of the ways in which they touch the employee through the employee life cycle. So it's from hiring, it's from onboarding, it's applicant tracking, it's talent management, training and development, all being focused on building that culture that you want. It's about performance management and rewarding people, not just for performance, but performance for the right things. And then mentoring and development approaches, assessments and succession planning, all of which is looking to develop that culture based on those key capabilities that you've identified as important for you when you're meeting your strategy. So that would be the key takeaway. It's very straightforward, obviously, to build measurement of capabilities within your main survey, but oftentimes people don't bleed it out through the entirety of the way in which that they address their employees. So that's pretty much what I wanted to go through today. Are there any questions?
Well, thank you so much, Christian, for a really thought-provoking presentation. It's brilliant to hear your take on an area that a lot of companies are finding difficult as they try to digitize. So just looking at the questions that we have, thank you very much, everybody. The first question is, do you think culture can be measured, and how do we go about this?
Well, I mean, I think, yeah, that's often the things people often say, you know, we're so unique, we're you know, there's a absolute feeling, you know, when you're walking into one of our offices, this is who we are. But yes, I do think culture can be measured, and because if it can't be measured, then how can you improve it? How can you know if you're developing more or if you're bringing in a new company into your company and you want them to sort of learn the culture? How can you assess that journey? And I think it is about identifying the capabilities that support the behaviors you're looking for that support that culture, and then asking questions about them, measuring them through all the different parts of the employee life cycle that I was talking about before.
Oh, thank you. And we've probably just got time for one more before we go over to Craig. So how do we create the right cultural conditions for change when our organisations are so complex and geographically spread?
Well, I think that one of the ways of doing this, and it is an increasing challenge, particularly with increasingly people are remote working, but also organizations are more fully international now than they were, say, 10 or 15 years ago, and properly trying to get synergies across a different part of the business. And there's lots of different ways. It's effective communication, it's clear understanding and embedding of the cultural attributes in different parts of the business. But the very simple way I would say is, or not simple, because I know a lot of organizations struggle with it, your leadership need to embody the behaviors that you're seeking to see throughout the organization. And if you don't have that senior leadership and then leadership down the organization buy-in, it's going to fail. So that would be the key thing.
Thank you, Christian. So we'll go back over to Craig, who's joining the webinar from the US.
Thanks, Cath. Thanks, Christian. It was good listening to that. So, yeah, I want to share with you, I guess, intY's journey that we've taken over the last couple of years, and what we've done and what we've experienced. Let me take you to the first slide in terms of what it was like before we embarked on this journey. Around the business, we suffered with poor communication. You know, we weren't open, we weren't transparent. We certainly didn't share enough of what was happening and what we were looking to do, and that created a big disconnect between the management teams and the staff, which in turn creates a kind of us and them culture and potentially mistrust. Certainly morale was low, and you know, we're a company that's 20 years old, and it suffered for 15 years in a kind of command and control culture, which you know, maybe worked at the time, but certainly wasn't where we wanted to take the business moving forward. So step one, what did we do? Well, we put together our list of values, and we have 6 values as a business, but this wasn't something that was created by myself nor a leadership team, but in fact the entire organization and the entire company, we took an offsite for the day, and we did various exercises. You know, the first exercise was to ask people to pick words that gave them the feeling of what intY was today and how they felt. And everyone picked 10, and then we picked a further 10 words of how you wanted intY to be in the future. And then another 10 words of what an inspirational, forward-thinking, fun organization would be. So we collated this information and we started to build our values around where people felt we should be, where we were coming from, but also what a great organization looked like. And that ensured everybody bought in to what we were doing. You know, this wasn't dictatorial, but was extremely collective. The second step, as we went on this journey, was all around communication, and we ensured that we did
lots of different pieces of communication to make sure we kind of touched everybody at least once or twice. As individuals, people have a different way of absorbing information. So we held quarterly QBRs. We call them town halls or all-ins, where actually we spent sort of 3 or 4 hours talking about what we'd done in the last quarter, what we were doing in the next quarter. We went through numbers, we went through our business plan, and we had a very open and informative and collective session. From that, and in addition to that, we held what we called SLT surgeries. So my senior leadership team would literally book out a meeting room, have an open door policy for half an hour each day over an 8-week period. And people would literally just drop in, whether it's a 2-minute chat, a 20-minute conversation. Nothing was out of bounds, and they could really sort of ask anything and probe anything they wanted. Now, I'll be honest, to begin with, they were a little bit sparse. As they took on, we had people literally queuing out the door. So they proved very popular. Staff surveys. We continued with our staff surveys. We moved these from annually to every 2 weeks, and rather than a huge questionnaire that would take sort of, you know, an hour or an hour and a half to fill out, we went to staff surveys, which was between 4 and 6 questions every 2 weeks. So this allowed us to really measure the pulse and measure the feelings almost in real time. So as we changed something or adopted something, we could measure what the pulse was. Teams. Obviously, we're a strong Microsoft house, and the Microsoft Teams product enables us to create virtual and disbanded teams. Sharing chat, sharing files, etc. And again, for a lot of people, that formed a very positive and very easy way for them to communicate. And finally, news screens. You know, we have a building that has, I think, last count, sort of 48 screens around the building, and this shows everything from the latest award we've won, anyone's birthdays, the weather, the local traffic, so they can get out of the office. Numbers, etc., etc. So a really informative way of keeping people sort of updated. Step 3, reward and recognition, and this is so important, so important. As we took people through this journey, we really wanted to recognise and show the appreciation for them coming with us. And again, like communication, we did many things. Staff kudos is very big. As I said about our screens, we put people's names up there for going above and beyond. We'd talk about them in our QBRs. I'd walk up to somebody's desk and sort of publicly congratulate and thank them. We hold events, whether that be sending people to award ceremonies, sending them to Bath Rugby, whom we sponsor, or overseas to an F1 race meeting, soccer games. You know, again, allowing people to really go out and socialise and mingle, not just amongst themselves, but with our partners as well. We have a unique training bonus scheme that we put in place. We actually pay people and bonus people when they take a course and pass first time. So unlike the traditional culture of if you train someone and leave within the next 6 months, you're expected to pay it back, we completely abolished that. And said, if you take a course and pass first time, not only will we cover the cost of the course, but we'll pay you the value of the course as a bonus. So if you did a $99 Microsoft course, we'd pay you $99. If you did a £4,000 project management course and passed first time, we'd pay you £4,000 as a bonus. We encourage flexible working, you know, certainly around families and other commitments that people have outside of work. And you know, that's a very big part of what we do. We increased our maternity and paternity leave, which for a small business with sub 100 people was a challenge, but it's something that's very important, and not just maternity, but paternity as well. Really recognising both parents. Free gym membership. You know, a lot of companies give free gym membership, which we do, but we encourage and allow people to go any time of day. You know, if they want to go at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, they're more than welcome. So again, it's just allowing that flexibility and fitting around people's work and home lives. Finally, the step 4 was the environment that people work in. You know, our office was like any other office. It was functional. And that was about it. But we went through a huge office refurbishment, and we decorated it and really put in and made it a fun place to be. You'll see from some of the pictures there. And we have a meeting room that's based on a beach. So we removed tables, we put deck chairs in, we put a floor that was a mixture of looking like sea and sand, obviously not sea and sand, and gave it a beach hut feel as well. And again, that just allows people to be a bit more relaxed and a bit more creative. Our kitchen, we had a traditional kitchen with small round tables in. We got rid of small round tables and put very big benches in. Again, really sort of pushing the collaborative community side of eating together rather than eating in our small teams. Coffee machine, music system. Yeah, our coffee machine is not a traditional coffee machine. We invested in a Starbucks barista coffee machine, and we had Starbucks in, and they regularly come in every 6 weeks, I believe, to actually train people how to make coffee. And again, it's a great place. You'll see people congregating, talking, communicating. So what are the results? And as Christian said before, it's important to measure culture. We've seen the staff survey uptake at over 89%, which is huge. And remember, this is done every couple of weeks, not once a year. We also measure how people connect with our brand and connect with the culture. And the latest figures, it's over 84% of the people feel a connection with our brand and with the culture as well, which leads to people being inspired. Over 78% of people have said they're inspired by intY. And we've seen hyper growth. Over the last 2 years, we've experienced growth month on month without fail. And we certainly put that down to the culture and what we've created. So what are the takeaways or your actions or something you can do as we look at the final slide? One thing I'd ask you to think about is, in what order do you put your customers, your shareholders, and your team members? And I'll share with you ours, because I think we're slightly different. I was very controversial and sat in front of my shareholder a couple of years ago and said to him, I just want to point out, you are not the most important person in my life, my business life. And in fact, you're not even second. Staff come first. The team here come first. Any decision that I make, any decision that we decide to adopt, we always consider the impact on the teams and the impact on the staff and what that will do. So team members always come first. It's about ensuring that this place is a happy place, an enjoyable place for people to come to work. Second are our customers. Our customers are not first. They come second. And why? Because if we have a happy team, if we have a team that's willing to go above and beyond, they'll do that for our customers. And if they do that for our customers, we'll have happy customers, which ultimately creates a happy and fulfilled shareholder. So that's the order that we stick in. Thank you for your time. And again, I'll open up to any questions that have been sent over to Cath and the team.
Well, many thanks, Craig. That was a really fascinating insight into how you've engaged people. And also, I've got to say congratulations for boiling down what I know is a massive amount of work into such a short space of time. We've had a few questions come through. So the first is, which of any of your business measures have you seen improve since you started the culture reboot?
At the staff survey uptake, for sure. It was a challenge to get people to read it, let alone complete it. So seeing that uptake at over sort of 89% now, and every fortnight people are completing it is brilliant. But not just brilliant, it allows us to make informed decisions because we understand what people feel and think, and that's so important.
And the second question is, what did you learn from moving to pulse surveys, especially in terms of choosing 6 meaningful questions? Could you share something you discovered and acted upon that you think you wouldn't have been able to do using the traditional annual survey?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is that you can change quickly. Understanding a feeling or a pulse immediately after you've announced something is really important, because whether you've got it right or whether you've hit the spot or whether you've got it wrong. And I think Christian alluded to this as well. You've got to take risks. You've got to be prepared to get things wrong in order to get it right. And moving to that pulse survey enabled us to do that with more confidence. There wasn't the fear of putting something in place and having to wait 12 months to see what people thought. You could really sort of announce something, put it in place, and if it didn't work, you can adapt it and change it extremely quickly. So that was one of the that was one of sort of the big benefits of moving to a 2-weekly pulse.
Brilliant, thank you. And we've got a question: How did you measure the connection? I think between the changes you made and the output that you saw.
I laugh because we went round. I can still picture the meeting that we went round and asked ourselves how we were going to measure it. And I joke not, after about 30 minutes, someone actually came up with the suggestion of, why don't we just ask the question if people feel connected and inspired by intY? And it was kind of a very obvious thing, but that is one of the questions we ask. You know, do you feel inspired and connected with intY as a brand? And just ask that question.
I think it's pretty clear from what you've been through that people are feeling inspired by intY. So thank you so much, Craig. And Christian, I'd just like to go back to you as well with a question from earlier. Have you seen examples of organisations rewarding people for innovation or risk taking? And can you share how they manage this?
Right. Well, I mean, I think if people take a risk and it results in a benefit for the business, then usually the standard ways of rewarding people for their performance work. It's actually what you do with failure that is the biggest challenge, because people are used to being punished for sort of failing, and that's the challenge. I had a client of mine is a large farmer, and when one of their products doesn't go well, historically they just hid it. You know, you didn't release it, obviously. I'm not talking about anything illegal or anything, but you know, they didn't talk about it. It was just one of those, oh, no one talks about that. And then the people that worked on it sort of hung their head in shame. And they took they had another, they were building a product, and then it turned out that it didn't work out in the way, and they had to cancel the project. And instead of hiding away and pretending it didn't happen and so on, what they actually did was they praised the team for doing the correct thing, working it through properly, coming to the right decision, and moving forward, and following the proper processes and all of that sort of stuff. So, you know, the balance is obviously is making sure that you have the right type of risk taking, because there's certain things you can't take risks with, but you have processes that support that risk taking, and then you praise and recognize, and you don't punish people in terms of losing a good future assignment because the project they last worked on didn't work out the way that it was being planned. I think that's the challenge. It's about how you deal with the failures rather than the successes. And that's the one that sort of properly develops the culture where risk-taking is understood how it should work in the organization, because obviously you have to set it up correctly, but that it is okay to do those sort of things. So I think it is about how you treat the people who didn't succeed that's important.
I've personally found it so insightful to hear Craig and Christian share their experience and their expertise. Thank you both so much. And I'd also like to thank CultureIQ for sponsoring the session. For everybody listening, the webinar recording will be available from tomorrow, and we'll email you a link. Also, very excitingly, in case you haven't realised, we're open for award entries from today. So if you've worked hard to create the sort of workplace where people can deliver at their best, then do consider requesting an entry pack at businesscultureawards.com. Finally, for those who are in the London area or can get down there, we're running our first ever after work event on Tuesday the 30th of April with more award-winning case studies presented. We'd love you to join us, and you can register on the events section of the website. So thank you everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day.